I'm thrilled to be here. Most people that come to me asking for help on starting a software company typically ask me two questions to begin. The first is, how much do you think this is going to cost me, and how long do you think it's going to take? So I created the 7 steps to start a software business to help them spend their money wisely and increase their chances of being successful in the marketplace, so that their software dream doesn't turn into a nightmare. I do want to say thank you to all of the sponsors that made this possible today. We're really grateful for our advocate sponsors, supporters, and in-kind participants. Without this group, this is not possible. What I'm going to do today is just walk through some practical tools and tips that I provide people when they are trying to start something new. And then in each step, I'm going to leave you with a resource. So the first step is to get clear on the business case. And I like this quote from Eric Ries, which is, what if we found ourselves building something that nobody wanted? And in that case, does it even matter that it's on time and on budget? And the tool that I like to use is from the Scaled Agile Framework website. These are 2 free tools. And the first is what we call an epic hypothesis. It's a big chunk of work that's going to take, more than 3 months. But the 3 things I like on this that are simple is the description. It's to help you get a clear and concise way to talk about the product internally. It's like, for these customers who are trying to do something, this solution that we're building is something that lets you do something really great. And unlike our competitors or the existing solution in the marketplace, our solution's better because. Then what is good, which people have a hard time thinking about, is the business outcome people typically want to think about, which is, how am I changing the world? How much revenue can I get? But then also, what are the leading indicators that would point you or infer that you're going in the right direction toward those business outcomes that you want? So this is a 1-page sheet to kind of start the process. Then that feeds into what we call a lean business case, again, from Scaled Agile Framework. And it's a simple 2-page document that has some probing questions as to how are you going to distribute this? Do you have any channels? Is it going to impact your internal customers? How does it influence in the marketplace? And as you walk through that, you look at your ROI model, and it helps you come to either a go or no-go decision on whether you want to invest these dollars. So the 2 tools that I recommend for step 1 to get really clear on a business case are from the Scaled Agile Framework. If you want those free Word documents, you can just Google Scaled Agile Epic, and it'll take you right to the page, and you can download both of those Word documents. Step 2 is build how you're going to talk about the product. Oftentimes people want to jump straight into building the software, but I always recommend to take a step back and think about how you're going to describe the product. I like this quote from Donald Miller, who wrote a book called Building a Story Brand. What if the problem wasn't the product? What if the problem was the way that we talk about the product? And so he has a book called Building a Story Brand that you can get off of Amazon to help you clarify the messaging around the product. And this is beneficial both for internal product development and external marketing. He's got some great practical tools in the book that help you really walk through the story arc of what you're trying to tell the marketplace. So you've got your character, which often in the product world is a persona, who you want to identify and really document well the source of their problem and the essence of that problem, not just externally, but philosophically. And then, of course, they're going to meet a guide, which is you, who's then going to help give them a plan to, walk them through a solution that kind of calls them to action to go achieve something great. And that ends in success and helps them avoid failure. Inside of this, he's got a whole script to help you do that, including a simple 1-liner, which helps you with really in 1 or 2 sentences describe the problem that you're trying to do, explain the plan, and how you can lead your customer to a successful outcome. So if you want to know more about StoryBrand, just go to Google, type in StoryBrand. The first 3 or 4 links will probably either be his book. He also offers a course. I've never taken the course, but I do follow the book and use a lot of tools from that book. The third step is to validate the message. So if you write all this messaging down, you want to go practice that in the marketplace. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Just some, Donald Miller will say that, as a brand, it's our job to go pursue our customers. We want to get to know them and for them to, of course, get to know us. But we, as product people or as business owners, need to take the initiative to go into the marketplace. I think Pragmatic Institute says, nothing good happens inside the office. This is a very similar concept. There are a lot of different ways, of course, that you can go engage in the marketplace, but it can be as simple as using Wix or Squarespace to go build a landing page, get on the phone, go cold call people, go to a conference. And what you're looking for is testing that language to see if it resonates in a simple way where people can understand what it is, how you're wanting to help them. Step 4 is develop and ship the product. You got to get product out the door. And of course, the Agile Manifesto talks about our highest priorities to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of software. When I'm working with young software companies, often what will get overlooked is like a continuous development pipeline, being able to build software and ship it to the customer in a fast and agile way. I'm a big believer of that because as a business owner, it really allows you to run this as a science experience. You want to be able to hypothesize what it is you're shipping to the marketplace, and we're always guessing. We never know if we're going to be right, if it's going to be accepted by the marketplace. So if you can make that hypothesis, get it built, get it to the customer, that allows you to get the measurement and the learning feedback loops that are really critical to pivoting or making a change of direction, which will inevitably come. So this, in my opinion, gives you the best chance of success in growing really not only a startup, but even a mature product line that's evolving. If you want to know more about the continuous development pipeline and how that fits into the product life cycle, there are some good resources, again, at the Scaled Agile Framework. You can Google that, go to their diagram and click continuous development pipeline. It'll take you right to the page to explain those concepts. Step 5 is get paid. I'm a big believer of charging from day one. And Seth Godin has a good quote that I like, is the reason it seems that price is all your customers want to talk about is that you haven't given them anything else to care about. So as an organization, pricing is very important, but all the other things around that and your software company, or your culture, how you engage with people, how you treat people, also influence that price. I'm going to highlight, well, how do you do your pricing? Well, it's a complex process. There's a lot of ways to test that. So I'm actually going to leave you with a resource from the Pragmatic Institute, because really the key to pricing that I believe is the estimating the willingness to pay of the customer. And if you Google Pragmatic Institute willingness to pay, you will find a lot of different articles and resources. I've got one reference here on what that looks like, but really focusing in on how do you identify and measure their willingness to pay, and that helps gauge where your price point should be, and then you can go test that and hypothesize and then measure. So that's get paid. Step 6 is staying engaged with customers. And of course, there's the famous quote from Jeff Bezos that the most important thing is to focus obsessively on the customer. And I think all of our goals should be really a customer-centric company. I think that creates the best opportunity for long-term value. There's another book that is really a favorite of mine. It's The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, he talks about the entrepreneur shouldn't start with a picture of the business to be created, but instead of, start with a picture of the customer for whom the business is to be created, right? So again, people often come to me thinking and say, I want to create this product. It's like, well, why? right? What is the customer, and you should exist for the customer's benefit. Scaled Agile framework has what they call customer centricity. So if you go to their website and click customer centricity, it's going to kind of walk you through some thoughts around what does it mean to focus on the customer? How do you understand the customer's needs? How do you think and feel like a customer? How do you empathize with the customer? And then when you build your solution, you're not just building a single product, you're building what they call the whole product solution, which is to interact with the customer through their entire journey with you. What does it feel like when they start engaging with you from a sales perspective? And when they buy the product, what happens? How do you surprise and wow them after they purchase the product? How do you service them? How do you support them? And how do you make sure that they're continually renewing with you? And to get out of the mindset of being transactional with the customer, but instead looking at the customer lifetime value, not for the monetary benefit, but for how do we shepherd and help these people over a long period of time. So again, if you go to Google and you type in Scaled Agile, customer centricity, the top link will take you right to that page. And step 7 is to grow and manage the business. So if we're lucky enough to get to a point where we've got a really clear and concise message, we validated it with the marketplace, we've built our product, we've shipped it, people are paying us money, which is for me the biggest indicator that it's being accepted into the marketplace. Now we want to grow and manage the business. And so Gino Wickman wrote a book called Traction. And in that book, he says the clear lines of process enable you to let go and gain more control. And your business now becomes more scalable, which means that you can go add more customers, more transactions, more revenue, more employees, while reducing complexity, which seems like a contradiction, but that is true. And I believe that with systems and process and measures, it really does allow you to take an idea from a startup and your first customer to scale that to hundreds of customers. The book Traction, again, you go to Amazon and just type in Traction, Gino Wickman. It's a fast read, very, very practical book. And in the book, he kind of lays the foundation for the 6 key quadrants of running a business. You've got to have a vision for what you want to do with this business. You've got to put the right people in the right seats on the bus. You've got to have the data to have your scorecards and your measures. You got to know how to process issues within the business, not just problems, but also opportunities. How do you analyze those? Traction is the kind of the rhythm or the cadence of the business. How does the business breathe from a quarterly standpoint, shipping the software? And how do you document your processes so that as you do add more people, everybody's marching in the same direction? So what I'm going to leave you with is, how have I personally synthesized all of these things to help me run the businesses that I'm involved in? And step 1 is to get clear on the business case. The way that we do that is through our product teams who are defining product. And then step 2 is to build how we talk about the product. And I put that responsibility in the hands of our marketing team to then go educate both prospects and our existing customers on an ongoing basis. And then in step 3, we're validating the message. So our solutions team, or what people traditionally call sales, is there to take that message and align it with customers to see if it's resonating. And then step 4 is to develop and ship our product. And our development team is responsible for that, building the software and then getting it to the client through whatever means, whether that's SaaS or on premises. Step 5 is getting paid. You want to always have a mechanism to receive dollars. I preach from doing that from day 1. Accounting is ultimately responsible for the collection of those dollars, and our finance teams are then responsible for forecasting future revenue. And then step 6 is staying engaged with customers. And really everybody in the business should understand who the customer is and how they engage with them. But key roles specifically are support teams, on how you support them when they have a problem, how you continually engage with them from a product standpoint, so you understand how they're evolving, If you have services that are wrapped around that, that's a key player as well. And then you need to be thinking about, how do you prevent attrition and the customers that you've worked so hard to acquire? And so having a mindset of renewals on managing your attrition. So, when you look at the business, you've got typically your annual recurring revenue filling your bucket of growth, and you want to prevent the attrition of dollars slipping out of the bucket. And then step 7 is to grow and manage the business. I like to use the Traction platform as the kind of the foundation to establish that vision, putting the accountability chart for our people, the data measures, the framework for managing our issues, document our processes, and then that gives us traction to grow the business. So of course, the customer has to be at the center of all this. And so if we put the customer at the center, and then we wrap all these pieces around the customer that it takes to really launch that product and then maintain it and grow it, that's what I call the software circle of life. This is kind of my personal philosophy that I use in small companies and large companies. So anything from a startup with $10,000 in revenue to a multinational company that's got hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. And so with that, that's the 7 steps that I use to help coach people that are wanting to start a new software company. If you'd like to know more details about any of the tools that we're using or this framework, you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't have a nice little handle yet, but it's Chris-Wilke with this long number. I'll put it here in the chat here. But if you have any questions, I'll turn it back to Michael, our moderator, to see if we have any questions.
Thanks, Chris. So lots of comments, taking notes and capturing a lot of what you said. I don't think I saw a particular question come in yet. Eileen is asking if these slides would be something that we could have shared through the Slack channel. Hopefully that is not a problem. I did have a comment from my own experience. I'm in a quasi startup scenario myself, through a complex being built with Texas A&M for DoD work. And one of the efforts we did was look for enterprise level agile learning, and scaled agile SAF or SAFe was where we went to learn about that. So I just want to kind of second your putting that out there. It was really a helpful tool to learn about stuff outside of the normal team aspect of doing this kind of work. So that's one thing I really appreciate.
Right. If you're new to the Scaled Agile framework, I'll be honest, when I first started engaging with it, I'm like, wow, this seems overly complicated. As I started exploring it, I would go into each section. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's kind of, I believe in that philosophy. And then the next thing and the next thing. After I did that 4 or 5 times, I'm like, okay, there's some good tips in there. And I really appreciate the openness of how it's documented, because it makes it easy to disseminate and communicate both internally and externally.
Yeah, that's a great point with it being kind of open, and it's very open, and it mostly in a visual format. Yeah, until you get really down in the weeds, it's a very helpful way to just explore it with your team when you're trying to get off the ground like that.
That's I actually borrowed from their philosophy, using that for my own internal philosophy. So, because what I was struggling with is, there were clear roles of product management, product owner, scrum master, how that interfaces with executive teams and budgeting. But what's not super clear in that framework is, how do we communicate with marketing? How does that look like with services? How do you do the support? How do you do your collections? How do you go train and hire new people, right? Some of those aspects of really the nuts and bolts of running a business, that visual aspect I try to capture here on one page for our team to help explain what do those interactions look like.
Yeah, really great. Thank you for the insights. And I see another comment saying the same thing. Does anybody have any questions? Please chime in. You're welcome to unmute your microphone and chime in. Chris is a little ahead schedule, so we do have some buffer here for additional questions.
I'd be curious if there are any other product, well, I guess with the product people that are in the call, you've mentioned that you've got exposure to Safe Agile. Are there any other frameworks that people have seen that they like, or methodologies? Or contradictions? Sometimes I like to hear what if they're familiar with it, what you don't like about that. Michael, what I'll do is in between these sessions, I'll PDF this and look to put that into the not the Teams chat, but the Slack channel. I'll make sure that that goes in there.
Yeah. Did I say Teams? My apologies. I also Teams.
Yeah, I think I was trying to make my translation from Teams into Slack. So.
Oh, I see. I see. Can you talk a little bit more about the traction circle steps?
Yes. So I guess I'll let you moderate that, but if anybody's not used the book Traction, I was actually involved in a business looking for ways to improve how we execute inside the business. And within the period of 1 week, I had 2 successful business owners that had built their businesses and then sold them successfully. I ran into both of those people independently by accident, almost in the same day. And both of them are like, Chris, you've got to go buy Traction and read that. So 2 people I really respected that were very successful, made the recommendation. I bought the book. You tear through it in a day and a half, and it was good. And so they, in this book, have, again, simple templates. I really like simple templates that give you a track to run on. So they have a 2-page document, which they call the Vision Traction Organizer, which really takes you through 8 key questions that your entire company needs to be able to know and have answers to. And what's the vision? What are your core values? Who's your core customer? Where do you want to be in 3 years? And lay that out at a really high level. And so then it takes you down from kind of the dreaming and the vision stage down into what am I doing this year?
When you're in the vision stage, what are those 8? Do you recall any of those 8 questions? Like what is the scale of those?
So one is what are your core values? One is what is your kind of big, hairy, audacious goal, right? What they call their 10-year plan. I usually strip the time of 10 years off and just say, what's the big dream that we have? Who is your target market? So getting really specific into the target market. What is your 3-year plan? And by 3-year plan, it's as simple as what do I think my target revenue could be, or key measures? And then in a bullet list of what has to be true in our mind to make that 3-year target. And so those are a majority of those 8 questions. Then the next question is, well, what are we doing this year, right? And getting really kind of coming down out of the clouds into those specific measures for the year. And then of course, what are we doing in the next 90 days? What are our objectives? Who owns that objective? And then they have a list of what they call issues at a corporate level. An issue could be a problem, or it could be an opportunity, but just something that we need to tackle as a leadership team. And then the people component is what they call their accountability chart. It's different from an org chart. It's who is accountable for what, one name only in every box. You can have Chris could be in 2 boxes, but I don't want both Michael and Chris in the same box. That never works. And then your data is kind of the story they use. If we're in a company and we're on a deserted island, we have no communication with each other. What's the one sheet of 7 key measures that we'd want to know to help us communicate together? 7 to 12 key things. And so it just kind of walks you through the semantics of how to put that together. They've got some really good templates on how you run your meetings. They have what they call a level 10 meeting. So every time I come out of a leadership meeting, we are grading how we did that meeting on a scale of 1 to 10. So the people on my team, like if they don't think I ran that meeting well, or if we got off track, okay, Chris, it was a 6, and here's why. So then we make sure next week we don't repeat that mistake. So it just fosters transparency and with objective measures around it.
Yeah, and you just talk about that right after the meeting, or when do you talk about that?
We do it right there at the end of the meeting. So I just go down the list and I'll let different leaders go first. That way I'm not all getting the same people, and it takes 30 seconds. And then if it's a big issue, we put it on our issues list, and then we go schedule time to fix it.
Okay, and speaking of meetings, on the bottom pie piece, so rocks, what are those? Are those things
that's their word for objective. So in the scaled agile world, that's a 90-day objective. Typically, they use the word rock from is it the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where you want to put the big rocks in the jar first, if you're familiar with that visual.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep. So if you put the sand in first and the water in first and all the noise, and you try to take those big things that are important, they don't fit. But if you dump everything out and you put the big things in first, and then the pebbles, and then the sand, and then pour the water in, everything fits. So they're really focused on what's most important to moving you towards your goals. Let's really have accountability and weekly visibility on those.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have follow-up questions?
Well, if not, I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of ProductCamp Austin. Thank you very much for.
Oh, we do have one last question.
Yeah.
What tools are you using? Personally, preference, if you can prefer signal on which tools are you using? Jira, what kind of issues and stuff like that? What do you recommend?
So in our development team, we're using Microsoft Azure DevOps. So that's where we do all of our, our backlog and product objectives are all tied into Azure DevOps. And then for my teams personally, I use OneNote and Word documents for like where we start our vision and those things. So, but Azure DevOps and Microsoft Office.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. I think we'll close it there. This is about the time we were supposed to be done. Really, thank you for keeping it at a tight time. Very interesting discussion, and thank you for all the insights from your experience and some of the recommended tools. I think a lot of our listeners will take a lot home with them and to work to apply this. So with that, we'll close this session. Please, at this point, you guys. Oh, I need to post the. Chris, you already posted